Hello, dear students. I welcome you all on behalf of Sri Jayendra Rank Zone classes. Dear students, we are in a continuation of the chapter that is ecosystem. And in previous class, we have talked about already the different types of ecosystem and what is ecosystem. In today's lecture, we are going to talk about ecosystem components. And here we will discuss that there are two types of component, or an ecosystem is made up of two components, that is abiotic and biotic components. And we have to discuss this both in detail. Now, abiotic components means non-living components, and biotic components means living components. So both living and non-living components we have to understand, because as we know, ecosystem is a consist of biotic community and the environmental factor, or abiotic factor which is found surrounding. Then community plus abiotic factor combining form ecosystem. So we are going to talk about the both abiotic and biotic, that is living and non-living component. So first we talk about the abiotic component. So abiotic component means what? They are the non-living components. So this abiotic components, if we talk, they are the non-living factors. It include non-living factor or physical environmental factor or physical environmental factor prevailing or present in an ecosystem constitute the biotic component, constitute the abiotic components. And if we talk about this abiotic factor or non-living factor which are present in the ecosystem, they are of basically three types. And this consists of non-living substantial factor that include three types. The first one is the climatic factor, another one is the edaphic factor, and the another one is the topographic factor. If we talk about this abiotic factor, then if we discuss about this climatic factor included temperature, air, water, light, temperature, precipitation. Okay, so temperature is there, air is there, water is there, light is there. Okay, wind is there, we can add wind as well. Okay, because air is given, obviously we can say air current is there. Obviously you can add humidity. These all are climatic factor. Whereas if you talk about edaphic factor, they are related to soil. So this edaphic factor, if we talk, they are related to structure and composition of soil. Structure and composition of soil. And it includes physical and chemical properties, like a soil composition is one of the important thing. And after this, we talk about it is abiotic or non-living factor. Then it include topographic factor, and it include the factors related to physical features of Earth. It include factors related to physical feature of Earth, and these are like mountains, slopes. We can add valley, then plains, etc. are the topographic factor. Okay, so all these three, climatic factor, edaphic factor, and topographic factor, combinedly form a abiotic component, okay, or a non-living component of the ecosystem, or we can say these are the simply abiotic factors. Now, apart from this, if we talk about this abiotic factor in detail, you will see that temperature, and in that we know that every organism specific range to which is adapted to life. Means some organism live to the extreme temperature, and some of the organism cannot survive in these extreme or harsh conditions. So there are some exceptions like prokaryotes and ancestral protozoans, means they have a cyst or they have a wall, thick wall, which can withstand extreme of temperature. And in prokaryotes also we know that that is archaebacteria. which can survive at a very high temperature, that is approximately 80 to 100 degrees Celsius, and at the acidic pH also they can survive. So that is the what some bacteria can survive to these harsh conditions. Others cannot survive. So these bacteria are the living component, but temperature is the non-living component. Same way, if we talk about the light, it plays a crucial role in ecosystem, as it is the sunlight, which is the direct or indirect source of energy. It is a source of energy for all type of living organism. So it is one of the important abiotic component, and it is a driving force of an ecosystem, because energy is required everywhere. Whatever the process you will study, that need energy. Without energy, it won't happen in the living nature. So there is a light is a source of energy. Apart from this, if we talk about the wind, wind has more pronounced effect on the plant than on animals. Comparatively, they have more effect on the plants than the animals. If we talk of wind velocity, it increases with the rate of transpiration. It increases the rate of transpiration. Yes or no? Because if suppose a leaf is there and over leaf some things have accumulated, due to which the transpiration is not occurring, when a wind velocity will come, a slow breeze remove the accumulated things over the leaf, and when that accumulated things get removed over the leaf, the transpiration get increases. Same way, wind also brings about a pollination, that is anemophily. The wind pollination is also known as anemophily in most of the gymnosperm and some angiosperms, which is essential for seed formation. Obviously, fertilization, pollination will occur, then fertilization will occur, and then seed formation occur. Hence, perpetuation of the species or a propagation of the species is required. So, this wind pollination, if we talk, we know that wind pollination is known as anemophily. Apart from this, wind also brings about the dispersal of fruit and seeds, that is zoochory. We have discussed that dispersal of seeds. We have understood zoochory in case of the previous chapter, that is organism and population. And that dispersal of fruit is also carried out by wind and necessary to avoid overcrowding and competition. Because the dispersal will occur, then the new seeds will give rise to the new plant in the different area that is some far away from the another plant or another same seed. So apart from this, wind also affects the plant and animal product population by causing a soil erosion in dry areas. So when a soil erosion occurs in dry areas, the particularly these populations are getting maintained. Okay, so wind this way affects the particular living organisms or the abiotic component. As a an abiotic component, it is. Apart from this, if we talk about humidity, is also one of the important another abiotic factor, and it refers to the water vapor. It refers to water vapor or moisture content of the atmosphere. Whatever the moisture is there in the atmosphere, that is considered as a humidity. And it affects the water loss from the body surface of the terrestrial organism. Because if the humidity is more on the outside, means temperature is low, and if temperature is low or humidity high, then transpiration will not occur or will less occur. So water loss from the body surface of the terrestrial organ that occurs through the evaporation, perspiration, or transpiration, this all will get reduced when the humidity is high and temperature is low. So this is directly proportional. Evaporation, perspiration, transpiration, that are all are directly proportional to the temperature. If temperature will increase, they will increase. If humidity is there, that will get decreases. Apart from this, there is a precipitation. So next factor is a precipitation. If we talk about precipitation, it occurs in different forms like rainfall, dew, hail, snow. These all are the particularly we can say examples of precipitation. Okay. Now here the rainfall is the most significant of this. Okay. And rainfall is most significant of this and the main determinant of the composition of biotic community. Because if rainfall is proper, the water content will be proper. Water content will be proper, then the plant's growth can be proper. If plant's growth will be proper, then the animals which are dependent on that plant will be proper. Such a way the maintenance all can occur by this rainfall or precipitation. So rainfall is responsible for the water. So next factor is water, and water, if we talk, the availability of water in soil, pond, river, lake, etc. mainly depends upon rainfall. Okay, and which controls the distribution of animals. It controls distribution of animals through its effect on water availability. Okay, if water availability grows, the succulent plant will grow. If water availability is not there, then the dry plants will grow. Such a distribution will be controlled by this water in the which is available through the rainfall or precipitation. After this, the next thing is the factor. There is a biotic factor in the soil. We call this considered as adaptive factor, and that is the factor relating to the soil, such as the soil texture, sand, loam, clay. Soil pH can be acidic or alkaline. Soil water can be there. Soil aeration can be there. Mineral content of the soil, etc. All these factors, if you consider, they are related to the soil. They are so they are a edific factor and determine the distribution of plant, where the plant will grow, and where the distribution of animals is there, and that which depends upon the vegetation. The animal distribution is also depends upon the vegetation, and vegetation or a distribution of plant is determined by this factor or the availability of the type of soil. So this is the what particularly we can say the factor. Okay, that is the soil factor. Now topographic factor at the at last also affects this particularly type of biotic organism that thrive there. So topography is the surface behavior. What it is? Surface behavior. If surface is a plane, if surface is slopy, if a surface is a high altitude or low altitude. So slope, altitude, hills, plains, mountain, chain, exposure. Okay, all this particularly if we say they are the topographic factor. So these all factors affect the vegetation and consequently animal life. So if we understand this topography in more detail, dear student, this factor affect vegetation, means which type of plants will grow, and consequently which type of animal life will be dependent on that particular vegetation. So obviously, this is the slope, this is the altitude, this is the hills, these are the plains. So their normal vegetation will not be there. Some different vegetation will be there. And this vegetation, which will indirectly on vegetation, the animal life will be dependent. And through their effect on the rainfall, light intensity, wind velocity, water content in soil, etc. So this vegetation also grow based on the rainfall, light intensity, wind velocity, water content, all this. So vegetation on two sides of the hills, one facing the sun and the other away, differ because of the difference in the environmental conditions, like the availability of the light and the like other factors like humidity, light duration, light intensity, rainfall, etc. As two faces of the hills receive a different amount of solar radiation and the wind action, because of this, the different type of plants and different type of vegetation grow on the two sides of the, we can say, a hill. Now the flora, that is a particularly different plants, and the fauna, that is animal life on the edge of the pond and middle of the pond and on the underside of the rock are different for similar regions. Because in the middle of the pond, you will see that water content is more, so aquatic plants, aquatic organisms will grow more. But on the edges, the somewhat terrestrial condition get developed, so the animal life can grow easily. Now, so this all are the particularly we can say the abiotic component or abiotic factor which affects the which are the part of this we can say the environmental conditions. Okay. Now another one is the biotic component. Another one is the after abiotic component. The biotic component is also a part of ecosystem, and this biotic component is present in the form of community. So if we talk about this biotic component, all living organism, that is plants, animals, and microorganism and microorganism that are present in environment that are present in environment constitute or make biotic component of ecosystem, means the living component of the system. And here this plants, animal, microorganisms that are the living component, that are biotic component of ecosystem, and on the basis of their role in ecosystem, on the basis of their role in ecosystem, this can be classified into three categories or three main groups. And these three main groups consist first, that is producers, second, that is consumers, and third, that is decomposers. So all these three are going to make a particularly biotic component. Now we are going to discuss this producers, consumers, and decomposers one by one in a more detail. Okay. So let's discuss the first one, that is the producers. Okay. So as we know, producers means they are going to produce the food. They are going to synthesize the food. So they are nothing but they are the photosynthetic plants. So producers are the green photosynthetic plants. And what these green photosynthetic plants do, they entrap the solar energy. They use the solar energy by the use of a pigment, that is chlorophyll, and synthesize a organic food from the inorganic raw material. And inorganic raw material for the synthesis of food for these producers is usually CO2 and water. And ultimately they synthesize organic food. That organic food is nothing but a glucose. So these green plants, if we take, which are synthesized, which are using the light energy and converting into the chemical energy and synthesizing a food, that is organic matter, they are plant thus named as autotrophs. Auto means self nourishing. They are self nourishing. They are synthesizing their own food. So they are capable of synthesizing their own food. And they are also termed as transducers. They are also named as transducers or converters, as they convert or change radiant energy or light energy into the chemical energy. Okay, and they convert the solar energy into the chemical energy, and that is stored in this bonds of sugar. So here energy is stored in bonds of sugar. Okay, so here the complex organic substances are utilized for synthesis, building up of their bodies. So these complex organic substances which are synthesized by the photosynthesis, they are used for the building of their bodies and releasing energy required for various metabolic energy and physiological activities. Okay, this energy which is released during the breakdown of these organic substances, that is used in the various metabolic and physiological activities. Now here, if we talk about these producers which are going to synthesize their own food, they differ in the terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem. So if we talk about the terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem, it is known that in terrestrial ecosystem, in terrestrial ecosystem, major producers are herbaceous and woody plant. Whereas in aquatic ecosystem, if we talk about the producers, it is known that chief producers are chief means main producers are phytoplankton. Okay, they are phytoplanktons, algae, and the floating, submerged, and marginal plants. And marginal plants found at edges. Okay, so this all are the examples of the producers. So producers synthesize their own food, and over producers, the consumers are dependent. So if we talk about these consumers, they are the animals that are not capable of synthesizing their food. They are not capable of synthesizing the food material. So they are dependent on the producer. So they feed upon the organism of their or their parts. So which organism? Either animal or either a plant. Okay. So they are dependent on the another organism, like the plants, that is the producers, or the another. Some consumers will be higher consumers, which are dependent on the animals. So if we talk about them, they are directly dependent on producer or indirectly, and they are heterotrophs. They are also called phagotrophs as they ingest the solid food material. Okay, if they are also known as phagotrophs, if they consume a solid food material, and consumers are of mainly two types, that is herbivores and the carnivores. So herbivores are directly dependent on the producers, and carnivores are indirectly dependent on the producers. So they are directly dependent on producers, and carnivores are indirectly dependent on producers. Okay, so these two type of consumers are seen. Now if we classify these consumers into further groups, it is known that consumers are of following types. And if consumer are of this particular types, the types are the first one, that is primary consumers. These primary consumers are also known as first order consumers. Or they are also known as herbivores or key industry animals. They are key industry animals, or they are herbivores, or they are first order consumers or primary consumers, so they are dependent on the producers. And they are known as key industry animals because they convert plant matter into animal matter. And this herbivores, it is known that they are directly feed on directly feed on producers. So these are the primary consumers or herbivores or key industry animals. If we talk about their examples in terrestrial ecosystem, primary consumers are, or we can say common herbivores are, grasshopper, cow and deer. Whereas In aquatic ecosystem, the common herbivores are mollusk, tadpole, and mosquito larva. Okay, so this is the what we can say terrestrial or aquatic ecosystem producers, or not a consumers or herbivores. Now on the primary consumers, the secondary consumers are dependent. So second type of consumers are the secondary consumers or second order consumers or primary carnivores. Primary carnivores, secondary consumers, or second order consumer. So they are the animals which feed on which feed on herbivores. And if we talk about the secondary consumers, and if we take about the examples, in terrestrial ecosystem, the secondary consumers are toad, toad, spiders, lizards, centipedes, and insectivorous birds. These are terrestrial ecosystem examples of the primary consumers, primary carnivores or secondary consumers. And in aquatic habitat or in aquatic ecosystem, the secondary consumers or primary carnivores are hydra, frog, and some fishes. They are aquatic ecosystem examples of the secondary consumer or primary carnivore. Now after this, the third are the tertiary consumers. And these tertiary consumers or third order consumers or secondary carnivores. Okay, so they are specifically dependent on the secondary consumers. So here, these carnivores feed upon secondary consumers. Example, large fishes in case of aquatic ecosystem, and snake in case of terrestrial ecosystem. Now this tertiary consumers or the secondary carnivores, it is known that They can be act as, or they may be quaternary or fourth order consumers which prey upon which prey upon secondary carnivores. And after this, on tertiary consumers, the dependent organism which are depend on this tertiary consumer, they are also known as top carnivores. And it is known that these top carnivores, these are not eaten by, they are not eaten by others. So they are called a top carnivores. And it is known that top carnivore organisms, it is known that they may belong to category of, they may belong to the category of primary, secondary, or tertiary carnivore. And here the examples are tiger, lion, panthers, falcon, and peacock. This all belong to the top carnivore category. Okay. So such a way, in the consumers, the primary consumers are there, secondary consumers are there. Okay. So we know that on the producers, the primary consumers are dependent, then the secondary consumers are dependent, then the tertiary consumers are dependent, and then the top carnivore are there. So this all are considered as a consumers. Okay. So this is the second group of biotic component, that is the consumer. Now after this we are going to talk about the third group of consumers, that is decomposers. Third group of biotic component, that is decomposers. Now the next category of biotic component is the decomposers. And as we know, decomposers are the saprophytic microorganism. And this saprophytic microorganism includes bacteria, actinomycetes, and fungi. And they derive their food material from the organic matter present in dead remains of the plant and animal. Okay. So they use this dead remains of the plant animal, the organic matter of them, to derive the food. Now in that, what they do, they secrete digestive enzymes over the particular this food material. And when these digestive enzymes are secreted over the food material, the complex organic substances which are present into that particular dead remains get converted into the simpler ones. So these complex organic substances converted into the simple organic substances. Okay, so that things is carried out by the decomposers. Now in this, a part of digested organic matter is assimilated by the organic microorganism. Means whatever the particular organic matter has been digested and converted into the simple organic matter, that is used and assimilated, absorbed and assimilated by the microorganism, and the rest is broken down into simple inorganic compounds for the recycling. Okay, so simple organic matter get assimilated, and the inorganic compounds which are formed, they are formed for the recycling. So this recycling brings about the cycling exchange of material between the biotic component and the environment, or biotic component environment. So if nitrogen getting released, it is used by the biotic component, and ultimately again it is released in the environment. So thus Very essential component of ecosystem are the this decomposers. They are also called reducers. Why these decomposers are known as reducers? Because they are capable of degrading the dead organism. So because of this, they are known as reducers. Now, here the fungi, bacteria, and active monoamines which are involved here, they are especially abundant in the bottom of the pond. And when the decomposition occur, the complex organic matter, as we have discussed during decomposition, complex organic substances get converted into simple organic substances, and they are further converted into inorganic compounds. This way the particular decomposition occur. Now if we want to discuss the functions of this particular decomposers in ecosystem, then let's discuss these functions. So if we talk about the functions of decomposers in ecosystem, the first function is they are natural scavengers. They are natural scavengers as they reduce organic remains of earth. Is they reduce organic remains of earth, so they are natural scavengers. And the second function is they replenish the soil naturally with minerals that are essential for growth of plants and hence they are involved in maintenance of ecosystem. Okay, so first function is natural scavenger. They reduce the organic remains of the earth and they does not allow the accumulation. And again with that, they also replenish the soil with the mineral contents which are essential for the growth of the plants. And such a way they maintain the ecosystem. Now after decomposers, some workers differentiated few other categories of living beings amongst the biotic component of an ecosystem. And some other organisms are also called as so some other categories of biotic component apart from producer, consumer, and decomposer. And they are number one, that is scavengers. Number two, they are detrivores and the parasites. First are the scavengers. Scavengers are the animals that feed on dead or injured animals. So scavengers are the animals that feed on dead and injured animals, and and they clean the earth and they clean the earth of organic garbages. So if we talk about the examples of the scavengers which are ultimately directly eating the animals or which are dead and injured and cleaning the earth, the examples are carrion beetles, marabou stalks, crow, and vultures. And vultures are considered as full-time scavengers. Okay, so the first is the scavengers. The other group is detrivores. If we talk about this detrivores, they are the animals which feed on detritus. Detritus is partially degraded organic matter. So these detrivores feed on the detritus, and the examples are termites and earthworm. And these termites and earthworms carry out a degradation or fragmentation of this detritus and make it available as in a simple pulverized form through their fecal matter. And the third category is parasites. If you talk about these parasites, they belong to the diverse group. They are parasitic on host. And about the parasitism, we have already discussed the parasite host mechanism in the previous organism and population chapter. Now, if we talk about the examples of these parasites, then they are belong to diverse group. And they include like bacteria, fungi, protozoans, worms, etc. Okay, so this is the what a thing where some other organism also can be categorized. Okay, so that is all about the what abiotic and the biotic component of the ecosystem. I hope you have understood well. Now, after understanding the ecosystem, type of ecosystem, and the biotic and abiotic component, now onwards we are going to talk about the ecosystem structure and functions. That what the structure component of this ecosystem is there, and what are the functions of this ecosystem that we are going to discuss. Okay, and that is all about this particular part. That is a biotic and abiotic component. Thank you.